Don't you just hate it when you're driving your truck down the highway and after picking up a young hitchhiker, you get a flat tyre caused by all the monsters? Such a pain. So what else to do other than run into the nearest mansion and fight your way through floors of the undead and other such delights in order to make your escape? Wait, what? In order to make your escape? Didn't you just choose to come in here to make your escape? Whatever, that's the premise we're going with, and who cares? It's just a bit of pixelated gory fun, not to be taken too seriously, and before you start wondering why I even mentioned it in the first place, then let's get into seeing what it's all about in this review. Described as, and I quote, a gory, fast-paced, challenging roguelike shooter with a heavy emphasis on horror influences. It instantly grabs your attention with a cool opening, which paints a scene to the truck monster diversion that I mentioned at the start. You've fled the highway to escape the monsters. Now you have to flee the house to escape the monsters. Get it? Okay, I'm over it, I swear. So, in-game, there's a mix of gore and a cutesy art style which will please most fans of this pixelated style of game. Not quite top-down, it's more of an angled view which gives you a scope of a top-down but also lets you see more of the characters and surroundings and gives it a kind of 3D feel. At times, when you visit an NPC for example, the view changes to more up and close and personal and shows some really interesting pixelated character art. The premise is simple and reverts back to games of old, albeit with a bit more complexity. You start at the bottom floor and must move through progressively higher floors until you complete the game. On each floor, you'll need to beat monsters and find the key to unlock the floor boss. Once beaten, you'll progress on to the next one, rinse and repeat. I was optimistic going in, but must admit to being a little bit underwhelmed when I first started playing. I found the rooms a bit samey and the shooting and moving not as frantic as I'd liked. It's not slow, but it wasn't that quick either. Thankfully, the more I played, the more I started to enjoy the game. Not to the extent that I believe it warrants its overwhelming positive Steam review, just in my opinion of course, but enough that made me keep playing. Although in half-hour to hour chunks rather than day-long sessions like I can do with games I really like. Hey guys, just very quickly, please do like and subscribe if you like this review and want to see more. Quick disclaimer as well, there aren't any major spoilers or late game chat here, but we do discuss game details which may include minor spoilers or early game content. Anyway, a bit of added and welcome depth comes from item and character unlocks. As you progress, you can buy and find weapons, items and upgrades, which vary up the experience a bit. I can also say definitely that I found my time more enjoyable with the unlockable characters than I did with the base 2 characters you can choose from when first starting. Those two being Jeff, a big burly truck driver, and Jules, an edgy looking college dropout type. Jeff is the better of the two in my opinion, as I preferred the range his weapon has over the shotgun, which barely shoots further than a melee weapon would strike, the shotgun being the one that Jules has. Some of the unlockable characters are really cool and can make some of the monotony go away. If you're wondering where the monotony comes from, then you obviously haven't played Dead Estate yet and spent half your time shooting the big pots that litter every room. It's tedious and boring, though in fairness, not compulsory. One character in particular made this a breeze with their high damage output, making them shatter in the blink of an eye. You can also buy or discover items which help with that too. As for items and weapons, you'll maintain your primary weapon but can buy new secondary weapons along the way. These are often powerful but come with limited ammo. Upgrades can improve health, agility and strength, and items can either heal or benefit you in plenty of other weird and random ways. Miscellaneous items can be great, and there is a lot of them with many different effects. I really enjoyed the addition of these, the little UFO being a particular favourite. I don't want to pretend any of this offers a huge amount of depth or variety, but it is enough to make the game more enjoyable and varied. The enemies too come in a wide variety of WTF is that. None are terrifying, simply because of the perspective we have as a player, but one in particular comes pretty close. This invulnerable beast will start you on the map, and as he nears you'll start to hear his footsteps. This can happen very early on and really can get the heart pumping. Unfortunately, though the enemies are usually varied visually, the same can't really be said functionally. Most of them either aim to hurt you by simply bumping into you or by firing out projectiles along various paths. There isn't really much more to it that, and I find I only tend to die by being overwhelmed rather than the complexity of any attacks. It can get a bit boring if I'm honest, especially when some of them feel a bit bullet spongy. Another source of frustration, and one that is the main reason I only like this game rather than love it, is along the lines of something I mentioned earlier. If you remember, I mentioned the angled 3D viewing perspective. Well, this brings with it some issues. Many of the enemies will have verticality in that they move up and down to varying degrees, which means it can be really difficult to tell exactly where they are and where you should be shooting. They look like they're in one place, but because they've gained height, they're actually in another. There are small shadows which can help pinpoint them, but I have to be honest in that I struggled with this and think other people might do too. Especially when you have a room full of enemies coming at you and it can be hard to keep track of your cursor, never mind tiny enemy shadows. Is it game breaking? Well, I think you'd guess I don't think so, considering I've said I do like the game, but it is a shame nonetheless, because with better implementation of tracking enemies and attack variety, this could be a game that pulls you in and keeps you playing for hours. As it is, it's probably a game you'll play for a bit, enjoy your time, but ultimately might not remember in a few months. There are two difficulties. The first is vague in name, and to be honest I didn't really know if it was the easier or the harder difficulty when I first read it. Turns out normal is actually hard mode, and the other one is normal. I suppose somebody with hours and hours of playtime might disagree, having mastered the game more than I have, but for me the easy mode made this game a challenge but one I could complete, but the normal mode, which is really hard, has been too difficult as of yet. One weird thing with the game is that from what I've read, the game is meant to save as you progress through each floor, but my game never did, meaning that if I died I had to start right from the beginning. This, on reflection, has artificially advanced the difficulty for my playthrough, meaning people who can save partway through might have less trouble finishing the harder difficulty. I did ask about this issue on Steam, and the dev said that it should be saving in between stages, and so I don't really know what's going on. If you guys can save, or like me haven't been able to, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Performance wise, I had no issues, no stuttering or lag, no screen tearing, etc. It's hardly the most demanding of games, but still an important checkbox ticked. Audio has a nice retro 8-bit sound feel to it, really arcadey and quite nostalgic. Pleasant and fits the theme and style of the game. Nothing absolutely outstanding, but good sound and music for sure. The game could have benefited from more work on the story, or let me rephrase that, any work on the story really, because as it is, apart from the opening scene and a brief rendezvous with the trader NPCs, there's nothing. Seems a bit like a Buffy the Vampire Slayer episode, am I showing my age yet? Fun, good action and appealing to the eye, but it just feels a bit empty when you really think about it. When all is said and done though, Dead Estate is an enjoyable little romp with enough character and style to keep you around long enough to complete it a few times. It isn't really one for the ages though, probably not one I'll come back to once I've moved on to a different game. At just over £11, around $13 to $14, I'd say for fans of the genre you'll likely not regret paying the full amount. However, for those who don't usually play these games but like the look of this one, maybe wait for a sale. So with that guys, I hope that gives you a picture of what Dead Estate is like, and maybe you'll consider liking and subscribing the video. Okay guys, take care, bye bye.